Hello there, and I'm very excited to show you my bush collision system. So this is using free assets. It's using envirospawn, which still needs fixing. I hope he does it. Otherwise I'll have to manually move these bushes down from... Basically what happens when you add colliders, they start acting like bubbles and floating up. I tried adding a rigid body, but it just slaughtered my frames per second, so I can't do that. And we've basically got two... There we go. I don't know if I should increase the size. I've been really aggressive with... there's the LED pop. So I've been really aggressive with the wiggle. You've got two levels of wiggle. You've got the within 5 meters wiggle, and then you've got the I'm in the bush wiggle, and then I'm leaving the bush wiggle. It goes back to just standard wiggle. We can add a vertex shader, and then we'd get more ranged performance wiggle. But I'm using a mesh deform and deactivating it for everything apart from within 5 meters. But I think what I might do is change that to 10 meters. I've been really aggressive looking for performance, and I accidentally added an extra 0 to envirospawn and spawned 10,000 bushes. But that's quite a good stress test because it's kind of on a level to where I want it to be. I'll be putting different bushes in, lots of trees, etc, etc. And the other thing is I would be occlusion baking it and sector vising it to try and cut it down so you only really see a smaller amount. Plus the fact that I'm using a really hyper aggressive LED system here, where you've got the same model. Double click it, open prefab. You've got the same prefab, but it's just this one has the scripts applied to it. So what's occurring, we've got the top level, which is an empty object with LED system and a sphere collider, and on the sphere collider we've got interact on trigger script, which is from the third person, what was it, 3D game kit lite. Interact on trigger, really cool because it means we don't have to code it. We can just drag it in, and we drag in the bottom, this one, which is the LED 0, which is where all the magic happens. We drag that into the on enter event, which we create here, and say sign deform, and we enable the deformer, which is a sign one, and then when we exit we disable it, which is this little tick box. We also play, hang on, okay, we've got, I need to select this function minus it. That I was playing around with rigid bodies, but it really didn't work very well. Okay, so that's that, and in the main prefab we've got a spherical collider for where we hit things and it goes jiggle jiggle. We've got a sound effect, which we probably should increase a bit, and we've got, I don't know, oh no, that's the minimum distance, and then the maximum distance there, that's a reasonable distance, although we could make that more, especially if we've got other people, because the idea is, for example, if we were cops and robbers, if you run into the bush it makes a sound, so anyone within that range can hear the sound, and anyone within that range should be able to see the bush wiggle a bit. So the bushes, once you've got bush wiggle, you want to keep bush wiggle. That's the golden rule, because it's just, it just makes sense, doesn't it? Bushes should move a bit, but obviously the performance cost. So we've got the audio source, which is a little bush sound. We've got the mesh renderer. It's just a simple FBX with planes and a horrible... The texture's okay, but it's just, I'm not a fan of sticking them all on one. But I'd rather have each texture with a, with one leaf on it or whatever, or branch on it, so that you could use it a bit easier. Anyway. What we've got the sign deformer script automatically disabled. It only enables when it hits the main collision. We've got the audio source, like I said, we've got the interaction trigger here, where we drag that onto here and we play the audio source and we play the animation. We've got an animator, and the animator is where's the animator? Here, here, here. Double click it. Right, it's two simple states, idle and on enter. On idle, bush, double click the on idle. Boom. So on idle, it's just a 0.02 on the peak, sine deform peak multiplier, and it's just a steady 0.02, which is fine. Then on click select bush, on enter, we've changed it to 0.3. I still think that's too much, so I'm going to change it to 0.1 there. Record that, wiggle it, unrecord. Are you doing it? Are you working? Let's see. Click, click. Make sure I don't add any stupid events up here. Yep. Okay, so 0.1 to 0.2. So that's just an extra wiggle for hitting it and leaving it. Close that. So, and then we've got one transition which automatically goes back to idle, which is 0.02 on the sine deformation. So the other thing is, I was super aggressive with this radius, so I'm going to change that to 10. So if we go back, can we go back to here? So I'm changing this collision to 10. 5 is really aggressive, so I'm going for 10 now. And we'll go out here and save it. Save, yes. It'll take a while. So what the changes I've made is I've made the wiggle as you enter it a little bit less, and I've increased the radius of the initial collision detection to activate the script to 10 meters because I want it a little bit more. I want to see a bit of movement within 10 meters. Now the other thing, whilst I hit play, it's going to take forever to. This bit is painful. This loading bit. The other thing is you can add a animated texture renderer. Was it a vector renderer, which I'm working on. I'm going to create one on Shader Forge, but the best one that I've got so far was Nature Renderer 1, which just breathes life into meshes. Right, as you know, so once you get in, there we go. So we've got this little wiggle, and then we go straight in. It's a bigger wiggle, or should be. You've got little wiggle. Just wondering if that's too much. That's definitely okay for the. So I had that up to 0.5. I'm just wondering if the base wiggle 0.02 could be reduced. It's fine. I'm just wondering if 0.02 is too much. The more I do this, the more sensitive I get to it. Ignore that, that's just envirospawn being silly. We can drag those down. So, and we can get extra life into this stuff. It seems a bit rapid. I don't know, I feel like I need to tweak that mesh deformer a bit. But considering there's 10,000 bushes in the scene and we've got a mesh deformation happening, I think that's pretty cool. So we can find a bush that's on the ground. Like I said, we can take the top level game object and drag that down if we wanted to. I'm just wondering if we could do that a little bit less. And like I say, we can also add another material to that which will actually move the vertices as well. It's just a basic sign. I don't know. The more I look at that, the less I like it. What am I? Do I tone it down? We can have a go, can't we? Alright, let's tone it down. I mean, should I show you the vertex? I'm working Shader Forge to create a vertex the material, but I don't know. Double click. Okay, in we go, and in we go. Double click, and on enter, on idle. That's it. I'm going to turn that down. So we're going to do this, and we're going to change this property to point. I don't know if we can do 0.01. Record. 0.01. So I've noticed that record and stop and everything. Is it going to work? Okay. And close. Okay. Save it. Did that even save it? I think that automatically, it's just double click that. Double. Oh, yeah, looping's fine. 0.1, yeah, fine. So I'm really toning it down. Maybe it'd be too little. I don't know. But I've noticed just a tiny amount of movement is enough to give bushes a bit more life. And just rock solid. And once you've, the funny thing is, once you've noticed this, you'll notice it on everything. Like GTA 5 and stuff. You'll know, oh, that bush isn't moving. It's one of those things. Once you've seen bush wiggle, you always want bush wiggle. Right. Right. Is that too subtle? You can see in the shadow that it's actually doing it. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Look at that. That's 0.001 wiggle. And that's 0.3 wiggle. Let's move it. It makes such... There we go. That's what I'm talking about. But you can, you can do this to your own personal taste. But for me, that's the sort of thing I'm talking about. Just a slight wiggle, and then you add on top of that. I mean, you can see in the shadow there. And bearing in mind, this is a solid mesh we're talking about. There we go. It goes into my philosophy of this is all stuff you should not even notice. You should just be going, oh, I feel good. And you don't know why you're feeling good. And the reason you're feeling good is that you've got little things like that slight movement of bush that just lift your spirits and make you feel happy without even understanding why. Subconscious awareness of the simulation. There we go. You see it? Just slight wiggle, and you can, bearing in mind we're going to add another, in the material we're going to add an extra wiggle as well. You can just see, and it also creates that lovely shadow effect. If you see down there of just a slight movement in the bushes. One of the problems is going to be when we have a storm or something. I don't know what we're going to do about that. I suppose we could have a storm setting. That all gets a bit involved, but to be honest, that can all be done by the by. This is a solid FBX mesh we're messing around with, and we're absolutely breathing a little bit of life into it. That decent FPS. We've also got their footsteps. Right, let's do it again. Can we see it? I just wonder if we could make it a bit smoother, that's all. That's moving ever so slightly. You can see it in the shadow. Unfortunately, it's a bit... It could do with being a bit smoother. And again, the less we do, the better, because at the end of the day, this is a very basic mesh. Look at it. That's pretty horrible. But it's cheap, and it's given, and especially when we add vertex displacement on the material. It's all just... And yeah, did you see that on the shadow there? Just a slight smooth. I don't know if we could slow that down. We could probably slow that animation down. See, one of the problems is with the by turning the peak right down, it makes it a lot quicker to get to that peak because it's reduced so much. So what we need to do, and also another optimization, is if we go to the prefab, double click it to get into it, go to the bush, go to the animation, assign deformer, and animation speed, the speed. So if we do that to 1, fingers crossed, that will cut the performance cost by 10 and make it slower, because it's getting a bit too quick now because I've reduced it right down to the peak of the sine multiplier. Right, we've reduced the animation speed to 1, but hopefully that won't be too slow to be annoying. I'll hit play and we'll find out. So the basic animation speed of the deformer is 10. So reducing it to there's a cost benefit. So that if we get too slow with the animation, it gets irritating. Well, what we want, or what I'm aiming for, is a kind of imperceptible kind of rustle of the leaves that just lifts people's spirits without them really being aware of why. This is why I'm so in awe of GTA 5. Right, let's have a look. I think it's too slow. Oh, I don't know though. See, that's just looking a bit like too much like jitter. I don't want jitter. See, it's looking a bit shuddery. That's not what I was aiming for. I was aiming for slow, but without... I don't want shudder or jitter. So, yeah, it's a lot of calibration. But yes, I'm in awe of GTA 5 and its environment and its sunrises and sunsets and lens. It's just beautiful. And that's why I'm so keen on GTA 5 RP, because even if you're getting a bit bored of the same old things that they're doing, you can just look at what they're, the environment they're in. It just looks beautiful. Anyway, enough of that. Double click. It kind of enhances anything. Okay, so back to this. Animator's all great. Where was it? The animation speed, that didn't really work. Let's have a look. Animation speed back to 10. Have we got anything else that we can do to... How about if we do 5? Let's try 5 in the middle. and save and save. All this stuff won't be affected, and we can affect this but with our animator system as well, so that's really cool. So if we wanted it to animate a bit quicker when we hit the bush, we could do that. Okay, let's give it a go. This load time is horrendous, but it is 10,500 bushes, so that's my justification for it. So whilst we've got this time, we've got about a minute or two whilst it loads in. Let's go over what I've been doing. So I've set up deform. Let's have a look. How are we looking in terms of speed of animation? I don't think that's worked. All I've got now is a bit of a kind of shuddering system. If anything, I might want to do it speed 20. Okay, that's not worked. Okay. So as we let it unload, we've got deform, free asset, invector 3D, free asset, envirospawn, free asset, 3D game kit, lite, free asset, and we just and what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just trying to calibrate. I was hoping that the animation, where are we? No, that's not what I wanted to do. 3C. I'm calibrating the sine deformer. Alright, let's try animation speed 20, see what happens. Save. And the only thing that gets affected by the animator is the peak multiplier, and because I've reduced the peaks, that reduces the overall movement, but it also means that getting to that peak is quicker. So the problem I've got is that we're going too fast to the peak for my liking. Let's save this file, save. It crashes. There we go. So I've drastically reduced the peaks from 0.5 to 0.2 for the 0.1. I can't remember what I did now for the settings, the animators, and 0.02 to 0.01 I think for the idle. But that has a domino effect on the everything. Right, just looking around. There we go. That looks pretty decent. It's a little bit shuddery on the movement's nice, and that's nice. I don't know, I think I need to actually make the peak a bit bigger. There was a reason I ended up on 0.2. So let's go back again. This bit's a bit painful, the loading in and out. Okay, so we go back to Bush, Prefab, Bush 3, Animation, Enter, click, Enter. So 0.01 is too small. 0.01, okay. Let's put it back to 0.2. So record 0.2. Come on, yeah. So here. Okay, so that's that. Close. Okay, let's try it again. Bush, enter. Push the enter. 0.02 is for the idle, and then for the enter 0.1. Yeah, let's make it 0.2. Put 2 at the top there. Record it just to make sure it records. To there. 0.02. That gets it back to idle. levels. Okay, and close, close, and I've increased the speed, the animation speed to 20, so hopefully that doesn't unduly mess it up. So yeah, there's a lot of iteration going on as I try and find the optimal animations. This is the sine, deform, peak that I'm playing with, and I took it down to 0.01 because I want practically imperceptible, not imperceptible, but just on the edges of perception of the leaves moving. Let's have a look, see how we're doing. Oh, that's terrible. The rustle as you enter is fine. I'm not worried about that, but this is terrible. See, this is the thing I'm trying to avoid. Okay, that was the 20 speed, I think. So let's change that 20 speed down to. We'll try 5. 10 seems to be the optimal, but I will try 5 and see what happens. Right, push. Double click, get in, see. Animation, where are you? Sine animation, speed that was terrible, so how about if we do 5 and save that and see what happens. I'm trying to slow it down but keep it smooth. So, I mean the frequency is something we could change. Maybe we change the frequency to 5 and see what that does. That should cut it down a bit. And like I say, we're going to also be working on creating a vertex shader as well, displacement shader in Shader Forge, just to get another level of leaf movement. Right, where are we? Come on, over here. That's better. Trouble is now that doesn't seem enough. The wave is good though. That's 0.5. I think that's not bad, you know. I'm not going to. Basically, I'm looking at the moment. I'm looking at the shadow to see how believable that is. It's not bad. Unfortunately. And there's a slight wiggle when you get in. Let's run to another one. That's not bad, you know. And the performance is decent. Yeah, that'll do for now. I won't go on. I mean, I could go on and change the sine frequency as well, and that would slow it down a bit or increase it, depending how much of the frequency we change. So the main animation thing is the peak, how much, the amplitude basically of the sine wave. But there's also the frequency. But I won't waste too much of your time on that. Something I'll do off video. So that's all due to the magic of the deform thing, which only enables itself when you get within 10 meters of it. So I'm thinking that maybe changing the frequency might do something. The animation speed at 5 was pretty good. 10 was the default. So let's go over. We've got a line there. Refine curve. Deform axis X. Curve influence Y. Predictable yes. Frequency 10.37. We could try and slow that down or increase it, see what happens. Phase 1167. Peak multiplier 0.2. And that's the peak multiplier is the key to how much of a peak we're going to have. Animate phase tick. Animation speed 5. So we tried 20 and that was too jittery. 10 was quite good, and 5 is... The lower we get the animation speed, the less calls we're making, so that's going to be good. Is static? No, because that really messes things up. Use effector. So use effector would be good if I could get that to work properly, where you have an effector causing all the distortion, but at the end of the day I can't guarantee which effector is going to be the one that's going to cause the collisions, because it could be multiple players, because I'm thinking ahead of multiplayer, so I can't guarantee which. I'm not sure about the effectors basically, unless I added one like a sphere that mimics the thing, but whatever. We've got the sphere collider. I don't know if we can. There we are. Bring up the scene. There we go. Makes more sense. Interaction trigger. We've got play the bush sound, play the enter animation, which all that does is set. Click. 0.02. 0.02, but the standard one we've set as 0.02 and 0.2 as the peak. The peak as you enter is 0.2, so that makes it a bit more. We could. I think I'm gonna increase that to 0.3, but I mean this is all subjective and how much peak you want. So we go to 3. Change the enter. Hello. This isn't right. Why are you at 0? 0.2. I want you to be 0.3. Enter. There we go. Let's just record that. Make sure it's done it. Just upped it a little bit. And save that file. Save. And I think that will do for now. So just to go over, we've created a bush collision system that can handle tens of thousands of bushes. It has a mesh deformer on it. It has multiple sphere colliders and triggers on collider. One to activate the mesh deformer, and the other one to enter and exit animations. We're using envirospawn to create the bushes, and these bushes have colliders and all sorts of scripts on them, whereas if you use the terrain bush thing, you just lose all this, which is terribly sad. And he is working, envirospawn guy is working on creating it so that they actually hit the ground. I tried doing that with rigid bodies, but it was such a performance cost that it has to be done. I have to figure out how to use rigid bodies and everything in the editor, and then save it, and then not have it run real time. So if you can figure that out, that would be great. Just because otherwise I'm going to have to use this game object, move it down, or I don't really know how to get these to map the terrain easily without being labour intensive. And yeah, I hope that's been of use to someone.